Today, we're going to look at the Samyang or Rokinon, depending on where you are in the world, 12mm f2 lens for your Fuji X Mount system. Let's go. What's up everybody? Phil with Photo Gear Fun here today. We're going to take a look at this Samyang or Rokinon lens, depending on where you get it and where you are in the world. I got it sold as a Samyang 12mm fully manual lens for your Fuji X Mount system. It's on the X-T3. You can put it on any X Mount camera. I've also used it on the XH1, which I have. So again, it's a fully manual lens. We'll talk a little bit about the lens. I'll show you some pictures that I took, and then we'll come back and wrap up this review. So it is a combination of metal and plastic build. It's got a plastic lens hood, which clicks on positively. It seems like it's a pretty good material. The aperture ring, which goes from f2 to f22, is metal, and it's clicked. So it's not declicked. The focus ring is plastic, and it turns really smoothly. You can see it goes from infinity to the minimum focus distance, which is about 8 inches on this one. It's around $250. I think I actually paid $239 for this. There's also a black version. You're seeing the silver here. There's a black version, and I got the silver because it was less, so I saved myself a little bit of money there. So what I want to do is take you into the digital darkroom, show you some of the pictures that we took. I went to American Tobacco, kind of my favorite spot for reviews. Took some pictures with a purpose, and we'll go through that, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up this review. Okay, let's take a look in the digital darkroom. I talked about the way of overcoming, so this is a fully manual lens, so there's no aperture information. So my clever way is 3 fingers is f8, 2 fingers is f2, 4 fingers is f4. So you'll see this as we go through. Taking a look at the first shot, this is at f8, just some big chess pieces that they have here, just to give you an idea how it looks globally. You can see we've got the Lucky Strike tower in focus, the Lucky Strike rook here in focus. There is a little bit of chromatic aberration or purple fringing. We'll see that more as we go through this. But overall, color looks good, clarity looks good, contrast looks good. Overcast day, so the light wasn't perfect, but you get an idea on what the lens can do. This is just another shot of the Lucky Strike smokestack. So again, it'll give you an idea of color, contrast, all of that good stuff. In the corners, at f8, don't really see any vignetting, and we'll look at the vignette as well. Here's a shot at f2, wanted to give you an idea on what the bokeh looks like. I'm focusing obviously on the sign here. Looks good, looks crisp, looks clear, colorful, and you can see that you get, at f2, you get a little bit of out of focus background, some bokeh, depending on how close you get to your subject. So here's a shot I did at f2. You can see maybe a slight vignetting in the corner. Again, we'll look at that more, but just want to look at corner sharpness here. You can see those bricks are out of focus in the corner compared to something, let's say, over here. So we'll see how that clears up. I took a shot at f4. Same basic shot. I had to move a little bit. The framing is a little bit different. But you can see here that those bricks do look better at f4, more in line with what you're seeing, that something that's not in the corner. And vignetting seems to have cleared up. Here's another shot at f2. Just again to show you how it looks globally. I like the color. I like the clarity. I like the contrast. It's sharp. You know, when you nail focus, and with a manual focus lens, you do have to be careful to make sure that you nail focus. So I'm going to do just a quick ramp up here from f2 to f8. And this is a spot that I use all the time in my reviews to look at chromatic aberration or purple fringing. And you can definitely see that purple fringing here on the tree and the high contrast areas. On the gutter, I'm not sure how well that will show up, but definitely you can see on the tree at f2. So this next shot is at f4. And so you can see still some CA, chromatic aberration there. It's a little bit less than at f2. The corners, I don't see a huge vignette, although some of this is in shadow. But again, the focus looks good, very clear, crisp, sharp image. We'll take it up to f8. And you'll see even at f8, there's still a little bit of fringing if you look carefully, but that can be very easily corrected. Even in On1, Lightroom, whatever your software is, there's generally a way to correct that purple fringing. Here's a shot at f8. Again, just to kind of show how the lens looks overall. In the corners at f8, you know, that's maybe field curvature here. It's probably not too bad in the corners, but we'll look at the corners a little bit more. Looking in the center looks really good. This little rock is in focus. Everything seems to be in focus. There's no purple fringing that I can see in the water, and sometimes that will show up even at f8. Here's another shot at f8, and this one was actually shot with a low shutter speed, so there's no image stabilization in this lens. But if you look over here up at the XF data, I took this at 1/8 of a second, handheld on the X-T3, which has no IBIS. And you can see it still did a pretty good job. And I don't have the most steady of hands, but because it's a wide angle lens, you can probably get away with slower shutter speeds than you would with, say, a telephoto lens. Here's another shot. And by the way, these are all raw files that I'm showing you, so no processing has been done at all to these. These are just straight from the camera raw files. Here's another shot of the tower and the smokestack. f8 looks good. No noticeable vignetting necessarily that I can see. Everything looks pretty good. Here's my sad attempt at being artistic, and this is at f2. And looking specifically for vignetting here, and you know, you can see a little bit of it, but I wouldn't say that in a lot of cases the vignetting is terrible. I think it's pretty good, and I was focusing here on the waterfall kind of in the middle of the image. But the colors look realistic to me. That's pretty much what I saw, what my eyes saw when I was there. The colors look really good. And here's another one at f2, just shot of chairs in front of a waterfall. Again, wanted to just look at vignetting here. So I also took some shots with the Fuji lens that I had mentioned. So what I want to do is look at some of those comparisons. So we'll look at the Fuji 10-24 if the computer will cooperate. I'm screen recording, so it's a little bit slow. And then we'll look at the Rokinon lens. So I took these shots side by side, basically the same framing. And here is the Rokinon. I'm sorry, this is the Fuji. And we'll compare that to the Rokinon. f4 they look very similar. The images look very similar. You can see that there are maybe slight differences, but you know, I don't really see any huge differences between these two at f4. And f4 is wide open for that Fuji lens. So let's go ahead and look at an f2 picture of this brick wall. So it's kind of a brick wall test, but it's a little prettier, I think, than just a standard brick wall. You can see there's vignetting here, and if you look up in the corners, this will show it pretty well, that there is, you know, some smudging here. Look down in the corners at the rocks, especially on the edges, and this exposure was probably missed by a little bit, but I found the exposures were different between the Fuji and the Rokinon. The Rokinon seems to be a little bit darker, maybe a third of a stop darker, at least in my estimation. So here again is a comparison. This is the Fuji at f4 and the Rokinon on the right at f4. And somehow I got my finger in the picture. That's brilliant. So we can see in the corners, the Fuji looks, the Rokinon actually might look, well, you can't see most of it, but they both look really good at f4. I'd say maybe the Fuji is not quite as sharp as the Rokinon at f4. And then here's just the Rokinon at f8. So again, the exposure is a little bit different. This should probably be a third of a stop or maybe half a stop brighter. But I really didn't notice any major distortion. Again, there's no distortion correction turned on here. These are raw files. So there is some slight distortion like there is with all wide angle lenses, but it didn't in real world usage, it really didn't seem to be a big deal to me. And then just one more at f4 again. And these images look very similar to me. So those are the pictures that I wanted to show you. We'll jump back in. We'll talk a little bit more about this lens, and then we'll wrap up this review of the Rokinon Samyang 12mm f2 for your Fuji X system. So those were the pictures that I took you saw some pictures compared to the Fuji 10-24 f4 lens, which is one of my favorite lenses, but this lens seemed to hold up pretty well. You can see at f2, which is the advantage here, is you have from f2 to f4, the Fuji starts at f4. You can see there's some softness, there's some chromatic aberrations, there's some things that aren't perfect, but that Fuji lens is $900 and this is $250, so you have to think about that. Also, with manual focus, I missed focus a few times. It's easier with focus peaking, and on the Fuji you have the focus assist where you can just press on the back button and it will zoom in, and you can zoom in to different levels, and that does help, but you are potentially going to miss some shots because it is manual focus, although if you're shooting landscapes you're probably going to be able to get everything in focus such at such a wide angle. Hope you enjoyed this look at the Samyang 12mm f2 lens for your Fuji X Mount systems. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, click on that bell icon. That will allow you to be notified when we go live or we produce a new video. Get out there and have your photo gear fun, and I will talk at you again in the next video.